All right. Tonight I wanted to talk about a common misconception in fitness that kids shouldn't lift weights. When I was 12 years old, I started lifting weights on my own. I was being picked on by a lot of kids, and so I started working out on my own. First, it was kind of like push-ups and crunches, and when my grandparents saw my interest, they ended up, one of their friends was selling his cheap weightlifting equipment at a yard sale, and he was going to sell it for $50. Ended up, when he heard that my brother and I were interested in it, he gave it to us for free. And I started working, lifting weights every day. Not a great idea. I didn't have any coaching, no knowledge whatsoever. And I was doing all the wrong stuff, but I did see results quickly. I got stronger and more muscular, and big improvement in my confidence. And I started eating better at the time too, cutting out um, sugary snacks right before bed. So I lost some weight, body fat along with that too. So lifting weights for kids is actually now approved by the American College of Sports Medicine, the American Academy of Pediatrics, Canadian Society for Exercise Physiology, and the International Youth Conditioning Association, as well as a number of other reputable organizations. So I wanted to talk about, where did this myth start? Will strength training stunt kids' growth? Can kids even benefit from strength training? And what I do for youth strength training at Press Pro Fitness. So the origin of the myth, there was a study on forced childhood labor in Japan. And you can imagine that this isn't representative of a properly designed, well-coached youth strength training program. It was too hard, there wasn't enough rest, and the kids weren't eating properly. So will the strength training stunt kids' growth? Well, these Japanese kids were underfed, and we know from various other studies that if you're undernourished, that you're not going to grow properly. And we saw this with Danish children in growing up during World War II. They weren't eating enough, and it stunted their growth. So what about growth plate fractures? That's a major fear, and it certainly happens in kids. It's mostly due to falls. Um, have there been conditions where weight training has led to this type of injury? Yes, but it was with kids lifting in uh, their basement like I was doing, and they weren't supervised by a professional. So I can't stress this enough, that if you want to get your kids into a strength training program, that it needs to be professional. And this might not necessarily be their sport coach, a hockey coach or football coach. They know a lot about their sport, they're experts in that sport, but they might not be experts in strength and conditioning, particularly as it pertains to youth athletes. So when we look at the various activities that kids can do, um, uh, activities like sprinting and jumping place higher forces on the bones than what weight training does. Sprinting, at least for an elite athlete, upwards of 4 times body weight, and jumping, even rebounding a basketball, up close to 9 times body weight going through your body. So this is a position statement on youth resistance training. Um, Childhood may be the opportune time to build bone mass and enhance bone structure by participating in weight-bearing physical activities. Fears that resistance training would injure the growth plates of youths are not supported by scientific reports or clinical observations, which indicate that the mechanical stress placed on the developing growth plates from resistance exercise or high strain eliciting sports such as gymnastics or even weightlifting, the sport of weightlifting, may be beneficial for bone formation and growth. So not only is there little risk of a growth plate injury, but these types of stresses from weight training actually may be beneficial for growing your bones. So what about strength development? And the common thing that I hear is that, well, kids have lower testosterone levels, so they can't build strength before puberty. Well, just because they have lower testosterone levels, one, doesn't mean that they have no testosterone. And two, you can gain strength, considerable strength, with little to no increase in muscle size. And that's just because the brain is better able to recruit the muscles better. Um, in going to another aspect, um, kids aren't able to improve their VO2 max either, uh, a measurement of aerobic fitness, but kids aerobic fitness training is beneficial for kids as well. Um, and they can improve running times. It's just not going to be improved through VO2 max. So just because they don't have high levels of testosterone for muscle building doesn't mean that they can't gain strength or benefit from it. So 30% gains in strength are typical in an 8 to 20 week program. What are the benefits of strength training for kids? Improved sports performance, that's a big one. Improved body composition, greater bone mineral density, so lower risk of sports injuries, whether it be through bone stress or tendons or ligaments or muscle strains, and of course, increased confidence. So what do I like to do for strength training at Pratt's Pro Fitness? It's important to remember that we don't want to train kids like adults. I prefer to start kids in the ages of 11 to 13. I've actually turned away several potential clients because they weren't old enough. I didn't think they were ready. And what's the deciding factor? Well, younger than 11 can certainly benefit from strength training, but there's just not the maturity there to be able to take the proper instruction to do these exercises safely. And I've even found that kids even 13 or 14, some of them just aren't ready for it either, whereas I've had 11-year-olds that really were excited to get into it. The other reason why I don't perform strength training for younger than, say, around 11 years old is because the kind of training I do is kind of boring. I'd rather have a group of young kids all together with their friends and doing game-based training, climbing trees, running through obstacle courses, the things that you would do in a physical education program. They're going to develop some type of lots of strength and coordination through that way, and they don't need a structured strength training program before that age. And the best source for that, if you want to learn more about this type of training, is through Jeremy Frisch. You can look him up on Twitter and Instagram. He's got a lot of game-based ideas for kids. Another option, if you're living here in North Bay, is the North Bay Legion Track Club, our summer program, and even our fall cross-country program. A lot of game-based training for the younger kids. So in the 11 to 13 age category, we're in a learning to train stage. We're focusing on technique, and then when the kids get into high school, then they can really start to focus on gaining strength. And Mike Boyle says, puberty is like illegal steroids. Let's develop their technique early before they hit puberty, and then when they hit puberty, we don't have to focus on learning those exercises, and they can develop a whole lot of strength and if they need to, muscle size. So we focus on learning the basics, squat, lunge, push up, chin up even for some, although it's not common for kids in 11 to 13 age category to be able to do those movements, and learning the basics of the Olympic lifts. At this age, we want to avoid sport-specific training. We don't know what age or what sport the athlete will be best at long term. So I want to train all these qualities, and it's going to be able to help them in multiple sports. And if anyone is trying to advertise they do hardcore training for kids, you want to stay away from that group. Uh, it's just unnecessary risk and too high a demand for this age group. So we're focusing on a very slow progression, and I'll give you some examples of that in a moment. So we train twice a week for 1 hour, of which strength training is a part of that hour. And this would be something similar to the long-term athlete development program for that the Ontario Weightlifting Association would use for kids. And on the other days, we're focusing, even if you were competing as a weightlifter, you'd be focusing on other activities, other sports. So we focus on technique. Technique's the most important part at any age, actually. Get the technique down first, then we increase the volume on those exercises, and then third is load. So what might that look like? Well, I like to use grooved regressions, an idea that I learned from Moving Over Maxes by Zach Descant. So for learning a deadlift, you're just starting with a broomstick or a wooden dowel. There's basically no weight, and you're learning that technique. With a squat, you can hold a 5 or 10 pound plate at arm's length, and that's going to give you great leverage and allow you to better coordinate the squat. So in a 10 or 15-minute period, I'm going to give a kid maybe a plate squat, a TRX row, and a plank, and they can cycle through that. And with the younger kids, they often have a higher level of conditioning and just a low level of strength. So they're able to get in a lot of work without getting sore. I can just have them go through that circuit as often as they can in 10 or 15 minutes, and maybe that might be 5 times through. And in that way, I can teach the exercise 5 times in a given session. And after they're pretty proficient at the basic movements with body weight or minimal loading, or even reduced loading, so you're lifting less than your body weight. Say in a push-up, you're not even on the floor, you're on an angle, so you're not working as hard. After that, I'm going to start them with a light weight for 3 sets of 5 reps. And so maybe a 10-pound goblet squat. And week 2, I'm just going to have them do 3 sets of 6, and then 3 sets of 7, and build all the way to 3 sets of 10, some technique that I learned from Mike Boyle. And then I'll go up the next smallest increment, say to 15 pounds, and drop them back down to 3 sets of 5. So very slow progression. And in some exercises, that might even be too fast. I might have to sometimes stall a kid there or drop them back down in weight, in reps back to 3 sets of 5, or maybe back 5 pounds and build back up if technique starts to slip, or maybe they go away for vacation for a couple weeks, and again, they have to build back into the exercise. So to summarize, the strength training is both safe and effective for ages 6 to 18, but there's going to be a totally different program for each age category. It must be properly supervised by some type of strength and conditioning coach, and emphasis is on technique instead of weight. With this type of strength training, you can improve both health and performance. If you'd like to learn more about this type of information, go to Athletes Acceleration and purchase Complete Youth Training by Mike Boyle. Mike puts out a lot of awesome products. You can also check out the International Youth Conditioning Association, through which I'm certified. I've got taken a couple different courses from them. and they have some free resources and some one resources that you can purchase as well. Also, you can ask me a question. Send me a question through pratsprofitness.com, through um, the book a session page, and send me whatever you're interested in, and or you can contact me through social media through either the Prats Pro Fitness Facebook page. I'm on Instagram at Prats Pro Fitness, and I'm also on Twitter at Prats Pro Fit. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this.